We are back with a Fox News alert. Governor Gavin Newsom confirming that Hollywood icon director Rob Reiner and his wife Michele are dead. Newsom saying, quote, "Jen and I are heartbroken by the tragic loss of Rob Reiner and Michele Singer Reiner. He made California a better place through his good works. Rob will be remembered for his remarkable filmography and for his extraordinary contribution to humanity." But the LAPD revealing little information about their investigation so far. They did confirm, though, their robbery homicide division would be overseeing the case. Former homicide detective Brian Foley joins me now. Brian, why are they being so tight-lipped at this point?
Well, as a homicide detective, you want as very little information getting out there as possible, unless you want it to get out there. And we'll talk about that with Providence, when you don't want too much information getting out there. So they're going to be very tight-lipped. This is not an active scene in that there's an active danger there. So now this becomes a highly forensic scene. And what the detectives, I can tell you, are doing right now are securing search warrants. Yes, they need a search warrant to search a victim's house. This is a stabbing, Todd, and what do I always say? Stabbing is a very intimate and emotional crime, and almost always the victim is known to the suspect. However, this is a very highly public and outspoken person, so that kind of eliminates that. But you hope two ththat one, that this suspect has revealed themselves through hate messaging to the victim in the past, and his security people will know it, and that the scene becomes now the main point of evidence. This is a highly forensic scene. You're going to have maybe one of the best homicide divisions and crime scene processing in the world on that scene, processing it. When there is a stabbing, you hope that there was a struggle and that there's transferred DNA. What do I mean? The suspect's hair, the suspect's skin. You look under the victim's fingernails and you hope that there's DNA evidence there.
Why did the LAPD need a search warrant? Because when I was in law school, the one thing I remember is if there's an active crime scene and you can see that there was a stabbing in plain sight, you don't need a search warrant. Why here?
You don't need a search warrant immediately to see if there's a suspect still in the place. But once you know that the scene is safe, there's no suspects in there, you have evidence of a crime, that the crime happened there into that residence. You don't know what you're going to find there. Maybe something that'll get somebody else in trouble. So that search, why not obtain the search warrant and move forward as best you can? This is a murder investigation. You can't afford to make any mistakes. The detectives will work with the prosecutors to make sure no mistakes are made there. There's going to be video. This is a person of means that is going to have a security system on a street that is going to have security systems with people with means. So I like the solvability factors that are coming into this, that are going to come into this case, but I don't expect the detectives to be putting that information out there unless they want us, the public, to know it.
I'm glad you mentioned video, because let's go to Brown. The shooting there at Brown University, the person of interest that they had, that they didn't necessarily broadcast to the world, but people found out who this individual was. That guy was released. It seems like this is the only camera video footage we have. This is a tremendously large university. How is that possible, Brian?
It's very disappointing as a homicide detective. When you hear a homicide happened on a college campus, you think this is a place that's going to have a lot of video evidence, might even have license plate readers, and for this to be the best piece of video that they have so far, it's very disappointing. PR-wise, putting out that you have a person of interest. Now you know why that police departments don't like to put this kind of stuff out. Yes, they had a person of interest. They didn't need to put that out. Now they had to let that person go. And it didn't seem to me like they're going to arrest that person again in the future. It seems to me like that is not the person. The police are confident of that. What does that tell the community? There is an unstable shooter out there, and this is such a unique situation. In mass shootings, very often the suspect is proud of it, or they'll talk about it on social media, and it's followed up with a suicide. So this is odd for detectives to move forward. Some forensic value may be in the scene, certainly ballistic value. I'm sure they've already collected the ballistic value out there. Ballistic value, I mean, they have slugs, possibly shell casings that help determine what type of firearm was used, but that's about it right now, unless they can get more video. And I'm sure Providence Police Department has a real-time crime center. What is that? That is a technology center where they're able to process large amounts of video evidence and get the best video out there and get it to their investigators and any other stuff they can find out in the technology center to get it to their homicide detectives.
With the release of this person of interest back into the community, do you believe, as we sit here, 5:20 on a Monday morning, that the FBI and Providence PD know exactly who they're looking for, or do you think they're still investigating to try to figure out who did this?
Nope, I don't think they know who it is. And I've sat here and said that I've, in other cases where I think, yeah, they know who it is, they're going to get them very, very shortly. This is an odd situation when they put that information out. I watched the press conference. I know what cops say and don't say in these press conferences. And to this point, it seems to me they have very little to go on in regards to this investigation. And I hope they're able to, fine-tune that in the coming hours or as the morning unfolds.
Do we need to harden soft targets like colleges and universities?
No brainer. How is Brown University have that lack of video evidence? I'm certain in Hartford we would go to places that didn't have great video, big businesses, campuses, hospitals, and say, you need to improve your video. A crime happens there and you realize the video is bad. You tell them, please improve your video in case there's something we can help. This had to have occurred at Brown at one time or another. They were likely aware that they did not have a lot of video cameras around. This is a campus inside a city. You'd think that place would be blanketed with video. To this point, from what I'm seeing, it is not.
Brian Foley, you always give us real answers, not cop talk, and we appreciate that because it allows the viewer to really understand what's going on and what's not going on.
Thanks,
it's always a pleasure, Brian. Thank you.
Likewise.
The LAPD is expected to give another briefing today after actor-director Rob Reiner and his wife Michele were found dead in their Los Angeles homes. Reiner is best known for directing classic films, got A Few Good Men, Harry Met Sally.
Jonathan Hunt joins us live from Brentwood, California with the details. Jonathan?
Ainsley, good morning. We expect and hope to hear a lot more information from the LAPD later this morning. As yet, they have not even confirmed the identities of the two people they found dead in the home owned by Rob Reiner here in the Brentwood area of Los Angeles. It was left to Reiner's family to confirm that those killed were indeed the legendary director and his wife, Michele. As for the police, they gave a somewhat shambolic news conference yesterday evening in the immediate wake of the discovery of those bodies, in which they would not talk about what exactly had happened, how it had happened, and who the suspect might be. Listen here.
At this time, the Los Angeles Police Department is not seeking anyone as a suspect or as a person of interest or in any other manner, and we will not be doing that until we conduct our investigation and we move forward.
Now, police did confirm that the call came from inside the home, and it is believed that call was made by a family member, possibly the Reiners' daughter, Romy. As for a suspect, there are multiple reports that police are talking to the Reiners' 32-year-old son, Nick, who has been open in the past about his struggles with mental health issues and drug addiction. As for Rob Reiner himself, of course, he is the legendary director of so many movies, including When Harry Met Sally and The Princess Bride. He was also socially and politically active, marriage equality among the many causes he championed, and politicians here in California and nationally have paid tribute to Reiner. LA Mayor Karen Bass writing, for instance, quote, "This is a devastating loss for our city and our country. Rob Reiner's contributions reverberate throughout American culture and society, and he has improved countless lives through his creative work and advocacy, fighting for social and economic justice." And as I say, Brian and Ainsley, we are expecting a further news conference from the LAPD later this morning. We expect to get a lot more details then. Back to you guys.
I see in the LA Times, they say Councilmember Tracy Park, who lives in the area, says the LAPD has increased patrols in the neighborhood out of an abundance of caution. Have you seen an increased police presence?
Not really, Brian. To be frank, obviously behind us here, you can see one of the police vehicles that has blocked off this area, but I'm not seeing a lot of patrols beyond that. The Deputy Chief Alan Hamilton said in that rather odd news conference he gave yesterday that they did not have any concerns about the wider community, which spoke, of course, tangentially to the idea that they might be looking at a family member. They might know indeed who the suspect was, even though they weren't going to name that person publicly. But no real sign of any great patrols. And as I say, that does indicate that they don't believe there is an ongoing threat here, Brian.
So Jonathan, is there You're right. They have been limited with their information. They didn't even want to tell us that the victims were deceased. They didn't even want to give us an identity, but the family released a statement and confirmed it. There's been some local reports to talk about who may be the suspect being a family member, but you can't tell the public, hey, there's no threat, and then call it a homicide and not have anyone in custody. And, you know, you start to get mixed signals. So when will there be a press conference to announce something to the public?
Well, we would expect something within the next few hours, I would imagine. The Deputy Chief, Alan Hamilton, was saying yesterday that they did not want to confirm the identities of the bodies until the coroner had done so. Now, we saw the coroner's van arrive and leave just about 4 hours ago here. So you would expect those identities to be confirmed. But as you say, the Reiner family have themselves confirmed that those who were killed were Rob Reiner and his wife, Michele. The deputy chief just seemed a little unused, shall we say, to this kind of high-profile news conference he was holding. I would imagine somebody else might lead the news conference we're expecting later this morning, and we'll get some more consistent and precise information at that point, Lawrence.
Okay. He was married to Penny Marshall first before he married Michele, and he adopted her child, Tracy. And I understand that Tracy lived on the property with her dad and with her stepmother. I think they had a separate house where she was raising her kids so they could all be together as a family. And I understand she was the one who found her dad and her stepmother stabbed to death.
We have our robbery homicide division handling the investigation. They worked throughout the night on this case and were able to take into custody Nick Reiner, a suspect in this case. He was subsequently booked for murder and is being held on $4 million bail.
Police in Los Angeles with that update moments ago, confirming Rob Reiner's 32-year-old son, Nick, is now in police custody after the legendary director and his wife were found dead yesterday in their Los Angeles home. Police say Nick Reiner has been booked on murder charges and is being held on a $4 million bail. Tommy, I come to you first. A lot of tragedy emanating around the world right now, and this in particular hits home for a lot of people that were big fans of Rob Reiner's movies that were so warm and heart-forward and were all about the connection between people, and now this horrific ending to his amazing life.
Horrific. And it doesn't matter what the person believes politically or any of that. You know, you feel for this entire family here, and what a horrible, tragic situation. The son allegedly being involved this close to the holidays. But we're talking about, you know, mental health, and we're hearing a little bit more about what maybe the son struggled with, if indeed he's the one that perpetrated this. You know, he's in custody, but it's allegedly at this point. We were talking this weekend about, you know, a homeless person who possibly had a psychotic break stabbing a mother as she was changing her baby at Macy's. You just don't know where it's going to be. And the holidays, it seems like this happens more. People have mental breakdowns, people are on edge, and it's just a time to check on your friends and neighbors and how they're doing mentally, because this is a tough time of year for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And Joey, as Tommy mentioned Nick's background, and People magazine reporting years ago that Nick himself said, you know, I've been homeless, I lived on the streets and all around the country, and he was a drug addict, that he said, and things like that. So it sounds like this is a troubled individual, but he was also a screenwriter. So clearly the goodwill of his father's name, and clearly that family at least opened some doors in Hollywood, because he was enjoying, frankly, a dream come true for many individuals who would aspire to have that role.
Yeah, you know, reflecting on all the stories, especially this one, because the gruesome nature of it, you know, you don't walk in on a stabbing murder scene and it not be messy. But, you know, it's a hell of a weekend to be defund the police or anti-police in any way, because look at the work they're doing right now all over the country, all over the world. You know, we have this press conference where we've thwarted a potential terrorist attack, and then in Australia you see where one's just happened. It's like that's what could happen if we didn't have the police and the federal agents we have working as hard as they are. And then you bring it down to the local level and you think about all these terrible scenes, what happened at Brown University, what's happened in the Reiner home. Somebody's got to go in and investigate that and clean it up. Somebody's got to be the first one to step foot in there and see it, and then go home to their family for the holidays. And so from all of this, because I can't provide any insight on how to solve some of these that we're looking for right now. What I can say is everyone at home, you know, it is the holiday season, and just be thankful that that's not your job and somebody out there that is their job, and they're doing it well.
And Harris, as Tommy said, checking on family. I mean, their bodies horrifically were discovered by their daughter, Romy, who found her parents in that situation. And if indeed her brother's responsible, then she's lost her brother too. There is no end to this tragedy.
Being Charlie is a film that everybody should watch, and not just because it's about Nick's life. And Nick and his father worked on that. It is a masterpiece. I could see what even his skills were reflected from growing up in a household with Rob Reiner and Michelle. The reason you want to see it, though, is because you'll understand exactly how that sister might have felt. They were fighting this their whole lives. He had been someone who was addicted in and out of help centers, in and out of rehab, everything they tried and tried and tried and tried. At one point, he was homeless. I mean, this was a broken man, and had been a broken young man, and had been a broken younger man. I mean, this had gone on and on and on, and he was only 32, or is only 32 when this happened. So just knowing what this family had been through, I find it hard to wrap around my mind looking up and seeing your child killing you, if that's what happened here. Like, it's a cruel ending, potentially. And again, he's a suspect in this. They aren't looking for anybody else at this point. And they know they have a long history because there's a film about it. It's a horrible, heartbreaking story of addiction and likely other types of illness pressures, perhaps, you know, depression. I'm not his doctor, obviously, but there's a lot to look at. And you look at that beautiful couple and the impact. I mean, he was an actor's director. He saw, and he was an actor, but he saw the potential in every individual in Hollywood. He had such an incredible reputation in that town. I just blessings to their family. And that sister, that daughter, God help her.
I venture to say everyone watching has at least one of their favorite movies is one that Rob Reiner directed, from Princess Bride to When Harry Met Sally, especially here in this town, and so much more.
Yeah, actor Rob Schneider, I thought he said it very well. He said, every life is sacred and given by God, our creator. One of the most accomplished American directors who ever lived. His movies have been adored by generations, has left us. And that is absolutely the case. I remember it was actually, this is very apropos, I believe it was Thanksgiving Day. I was trying to pull my daughter away from the TV to go for a walk. I'm like, come on, this is fun. You always love going outside. She was hooked on The Princess Bride. And I thought to myself, because kids, you know, they want animation. And this is a film that was created in 1987, before I was even born. And here is my 6-year-old daughter glued to the screen, of course, Rob Reiner's film. So his films have impacted generations and will continue to. And, you know, I would just say this about his son, Nick, if indeed he did this, it's alleged, of course, at this point, this was a very close-up crime. A stabbing is a very brutal, personal type of thing. And I saw some footage from about 10 years ago of Rob Reiner and his son. And Rob looked at him with so much kindness and empathy, and it was a very warm relationship. So I really struggled to understand this. Prayers for this family. This is a very hard thing to happen. Right before Hanukkah, he, of course, was Jewish.
Yeah, father's love, it's just infinite.
Yep.
All right, John, new details out after famed Hollywood director and actor Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle were found dead in their home. LA police have arrested one of the couple's sons in connection with the killings. Our chief correspondent Jonathan Hunt is live out of Brentwood for us. He's got more on all of this. Jonathan, what more can you tell us?
Well, Sandra, within hours of the bodies of Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle being discovered here at their Brentwood home, we were getting word of the potential involvement of their 32-year-old son, Nick Reiner. And this morning, we got confirmation that he has indeed been arrested in the early hours of this morning, we believe, and is being held on $4 million bond. You can see Nick Reiner in this family photo that was just taken a few months ago in September. He is the young man with the shaved head in that picture. Now, the LAPD said very little yesterday as they began their investigation, but the police chief confirmed this morning that Nick Reiner had indeed been arrested. Listen here.
We have our robbery homicide division handling the investigation. They worked throughout the night on this case and were able to take into custody Nick Reiner, a suspect in this case. He was subsequently booked for murder, and is being held on $4 million bail.
Now, police were initially called out to this Brentwood home at around 3:40 yesterday. As we understand it, one of the couple's daughters discovered their parents here, and it was a pretty grisly scene as we understand it. Both apparently stabbed to death. Now, Rob Reiner, of course, was a beloved figure in Hollywood, famed for a whole string of hit movies, including Sleepless, including When Harry Met Sally, The Princess Bride, and, of course, A Few Good Men. He's been paid tribute to by a slew of political and Hollywood figures, thanks to his activism as well. Maria Shriver, the journalist and former First Lady of California, saying, quote, "I'm devastated, gutted, shocked, stunned, and so deeply saddened, as are all of the people who loved them and who they loved. I hope people remember them as two deeply talented, kind, fun, loving, good, patriotic people who loved each other deeply." And Sandra, our corporate cousins at TMZ are reporting that Rob and Michele Reiner, along with their son Nick, attended a holiday party at the home of Conan O'Brien on Saturday night, and that the three of them were heard arguing very loudly. Now, if that plays in any way to the tragic events that unfolded here on Sunday afternoon, we do not know at this point. We hope that we will hear more from the Los Angeles Police Department later today. Sandra?
Wow. Jonathan Hunt with the very latest on all of that for us.
All right, Sandra, let's bring in Mary Ellen O'Toole, former FBI special agent and profiler. You know, when we first heard of the deaths, we thought, oh my God, was it a robbery? Was it some sort of break and enter? And then to hear that the son, Neil, is the suspect in this horrific murder just defies all logic, at least as far as we can see from the outside. What are you thinking about all this?
Well, when it was first reported as a profiler, what you do, you look at obviously not having access to all the files, but you look at the victimology and you look at the neighborhood. And I think it was almost immediately reported that there was no forced entry and there was no forced exit. And that neighborhood has a low crime rate compared to certainly other areas of Los Angeles. So when you see even those two factors, it certainly can suggest that who's ever responsible had access to that house or was voluntarily allowed into that home by one of the victims. So that's the first thing that struck me.
You know, TMZ, which is one of the Fox Corporation properties, was reporting that their throats were cut. You know, killing someone with a gun is one thing. I mean, you can do it at a distance, but when you kill someone with a knife, whether you stab them or you cut their throats or whatever, that is just such an up-close and personal way to murder somebody. What does that tell you as a profiler?
It is. It's also a way to make sure that as the offender, that there's so much blood that's being produced from the injuries. It's very likely that your hand slipped down over the blade, and you cut yourself, which means that you deposited your own blood at the crime scene. It also suggests that there was a fight because there would have been defensive injuries, more than likely, on both victims, again, causing the offender to leave his own blood, his own DNA at the crime scene. And that was immediately probably noticed by the homicide detectives that went there. And you also had family members who lived close by who were also providing information to the police so that they had reported information, and they probably also had that forensic information. And when they approached the son, he probably had injuries on him. So all of that collectively came together pretty quickly.
I mean, to stab your parents, if he indeed is the assailant, and this is the way it happened, to stab your parents to death requires such a fit of rage, I would imagine, that it's something that would have to have built up over time. And as Jonathan Hunt reported just a moment ago, TMZ is saying that the three of them, Michele and Rob and Nick, were at a party at Conan O'Brien's house, a holiday party the night before, and were heard engaged in a very loud argument. That would seem to suggest, Mary Ellen, that there was some bad blood that was brewing over some time.
I think you're right, and that's probably going to come out in the next couple of days. This doesn't just start the day before yesterday. So there was ongoing issues between them. And when I've seen cases like this in the past, oftentimes the family underestimates the potential of their loved one in terms of what they could do to them. But I think we're going to see the patterns begin to come to the surface over time, because that is a lot of anger, that's a lot of rage. It doesn't just start on the night of the attack.
Yeah, I mean, who knows how long it's been going on. I also want to ask you quickly, Mary Ellen, about this attack that was foiled. It was a plot that was targeting Los Angeles on New Year's Eve. 5 people arrested. Apparently, there was another person who was arrested in New Orleans in an associated plot. This is what Bill Asaley, the U.S. attorney, said.
The defendants are all radical anti-government members of the Turtle Island Liberation Front, which, according to their own social media, is an anti-capitalist, anti-government movement that calls for their associates to rise up and fight back against capitalism. One of the leaders of the organization, defendant Audrey Carroll, helped organize an even more radical faction of the group called the Order of the Black Lotus.
Yeah, we should say 4 people arrested in Los Angeles, a 5th in New Orleans. What are you thinking about this group?
Well, here's the issue when you have multiple people, especially when you have younger people that will rely on social media, even though they think it's secure. People talk to one another, and people then go forward and they tell other people about it. And that's one of the contributors, I think, to what happened here. Now, the thing is, they just didn't talk about it, though. They actually engaged in actions which told the FBI and law enforcement that they were serious about carrying out these their efforts. So I think that's the point where the FBI, we're used to hearing a lot of things on the internet, but when we start seeing actions to indicate, I'm really going to do this, that escalates it. But again, 4 people together, it's very difficult to keep a secret.
Yeah, 3 women and a man. That would seem to harken back to the days of the 1960s and 70s radical groups. Mary Ellen, thanks for joining us. Thanks for your expertise. Appreciate it.
Thanks. The son of Hollywood director, producer, and actor Rob Reiner has been booked on suspicion of murder after Reiner and his wife were found dead Sunday at their Los Angeles home. 32-year-old Nick Reiner has a long history of substance abuse and mental issues. Police say he's behind this. Correspondent Matt Finn is in Brentwood, California tonight with the latest.
Our hearts go out to the family and friends of the Reiners, a tragic incident.
The son of legendary Hollywood director Rob Reiner and his wife Michele is now behind bars. Police say 32-year-old Nick Reiner, who spoke openly about his struggles with drug addiction and homelessness, was taken into custody following the shocking deaths of the couple. Los Angeles police were called to Rob and Michele Reiner's home in the upscale Brentwood neighborhood Sunday afternoon after their bodies were found inside.
He was subsequently booked for murder.
Court documents show he is now being held without bail after initially being held on $4 million. Law enforcement and sources say there was no sign of forced entry and that it appears the 2 died of knife wounds. This son of comedy legend Carl Reiner, Rob's 5-decade-long career began as Archie Bunker's son-in-law, Meathead, on the TV show All in the Family. He continued as a writer, producer, and director with hit movies like The Princess Bride, A Few Good Men, and When Harry Met Sally, where Reiner met his wife Michele Singer, a photographer and later producer. That movie's co-star Billy Crystal appeared close to tears as he walked near the crime scene Sunday night. Numerous tributes pouring in from politicians like Barack Obama, who said the Reiners, quote, will be remembered for the values they championed and the countless people they inspired. To Hollywood heavyweights like Ron Howard, who called Reiner a superlative filmmaker, a supportive colleague, and at all times, a dedicated citizen.
And the Reiners were also political activists, becoming involved in issues like marriage equality and early childhood development. Rob Reiner was an outspoken critic of President Trump. Rob was 78 years old. His wife, Michele, was 70.
A horrific tragedy that's shocking Hollywood. Legendary director Rob Reiner and his wife, Michele Singer Reiner, found brutally murdered in their home in the Brentwood neighborhood of Los Angeles, their throats slashed. Nick Reiner, the son of Rob, arrested and booked for murder. He was originally held on a $4 million bail, but that status has been changed to no bail. Just months ago, Rob had set aside politics while reacting to the brutal murder of Charlie Kirk.
That should never happen to anybody. I don't care what your political beliefs are. That's not acceptable. That's not a solution to solving problems.
Harold Ford, you knew Rob Reiner.
I did. I met him 25 years ago when, during the election of then Governor Bush and Al Gore, the day of the election, he and several people from Hollywood came to Tennessee to try to be helpful to Al Gore, and we spent 24 to 36 hours together and maintain an acquaintanceship and friendship. My heart goes out to his family and to all of his loved ones and people who knew him extremely well. I watched Billy Crystal walk down the street. He and I believe in his wife, as they were obviously devastated and heartbroken by what happened. I listened to many around the country today and last night, and I woke up last night at Greg and I sometimes wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. I went to the bathroom and I
try not to wake you.
I walked in the kitchen and I saw the headline. I thought I was dreaming. I thought that maybe there was something in my eyes and then to read that. I'll say this. I don't like saying this, but I have to tell you, listening to him, what he said, and what we've been talking about, right and wrong. I hope President Trump comes back out and makes a different statement about Rob Reiner. This was an American. You can disagree with him wholeheartedly, but to be killed by your child, a man who loved his son, loved his family, clearly something went awry, fatally awry. My heart goes out and my condolences go out and my prayers go out to his family again, and may his life be a blessing for them, and may Miss Reiner's life be a blessing for them as well. It's a tough thing for many people who knew him and loved him.
Emily.
I keep thinking about how all of Rob Reiner's films were the common denominator was like the humanity, how, you know, there's some angst and but it's human, and it always resolves on these notes of like love and the connection and relationships, and so deeply personal. And my favorite movies, so many of them are his, like The Sure Thing, and of course When Harry Met Sally, and The Princess Bride. And so to have such a tragic and violent death at the hands of his son, allegedly, is just so deeply shocking. And I sort of think about, and I don't mean to sound trite because I mean this, but, you know, it's like how they say in first class, you know, first class isn't soundproof. First class isn't smell-proof, meaning you pay all this money and you have this great seat, but you can still, you know, smell if someone stinks. You can still hear the baby screaming behind you. And the point is that here's a family that has so much money and fame and accomplishment and success, and yet there is still allegedly deep angst and violence and a horrific issue that no amount of money or no amount of connections or popularity or you know, being on the world stage could fix, which is a very sick and troubled and homicidal, allegedly, son.
Dana.
Well, I do think he represented a great little period in American movie history. And thank goodness he loved a rom-com. I loved When Harry Met Sally, of course, The Princess Bride. But looking back today, when he was Meathead on Archie Bunker, I mean, that was so funny. I loved watching that with my family. So he gave us a lot of entertainment. And I hope that we can extend also some prayers for their daughter who supposedly came upon this scene. And may she be held by God, because this is going to be a tough one for her to go forward.
Sure will be. Greg.
I think, before this happened, I think that Rob Reiner's wife were in the worst situation any parent or family member could ever have imagined, because it's unmanageable. Mm-hmm. It is hell on earth. Just imagine a person you know as a child who's no longer that person. They're not that person. It's a drug in a human form. You see them on the streets in New York. That is not a human being. That is a drug that is making decisions for its own preservation, which is going against your own survival. It's got to be the worst thing ever. And the worst thing about it, there's nothing you can do but pray that he won't come back. You try to hope maybe the city, you think about it, could they have institutionalized this guy? He went through rehab, I don't know, a dozen times. This guy, and also rehab is pointless unless you have a system outside it. That's why you keep going in and you don't drink or do drugs. Then you come out and you drink and do drugs. Some people take it as a vacation. I happen to think rehabs don't work unless you have a a system outside of it that keeps you sober. And it's just a shame that, you know, it's an equal opportunity tragedy. The question always is how it can be prevented, and in some ways you can't.
Yep, so sad.
If Joe Biden had said this about anybody, I would have attacked him and said he was completely wrong. I do hope the president comes back and corrects himself.
Well, he was asked to, and he didn't. And I think the thing is, you don't have to like the things that he says all the time. It is why in my filter, Trump is always words versus deeds. I don't have to like what he says. In fact, I can hate what he says, but I can also think in his brain, he's going, this guy compared me to Hitler. He put a target on my back. I don't like him. It's like, well, if it were me, I'd go like, but I'm sorry he's dead. But he can't let that go. We don't have to like it. I just look at the deeds. But I get why you're upset.
It's wrong. I don't disagree with you, but it's wrong, and we should be able to call out right and wrong. We've talked about it on the show this earlier. That's wrong what he did.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.